radio crackled. Some farmer out past Hayes complaining about his irrigation pump again. I twisted the volume down and watched the endless wheat ripple under that flat Kansas sky. The kind of view that makes you feel small even when you're sitting 12 feet up in a locomotive cab. 23 years I've been running this route for BNSF. Garden City to Salina, 6 days a week, hauling grain and livestock feed and whatever else needs moving across the plains. My dad ran it before me, 31 years on the same stretch of track before his lungs gave out. Black lung, they called it, though it wasn't coal that got him. Just years of diesel fumes and grain dust and whatever else floats through a rail yard. Now he's up in McPherson, oxygen tank by his bed, waiting for me to finish my shift so I can drive up and make sure he's taking his pills. Grant, you copy? Jake Hollister's voice cut through the cab. He was riding in the second engine today, standard procedure for a 112-car freight. We had 3 units total pulling this bastard, and I was lead engineer, which meant every mechanical hiccup was my problem. Copy, I said, picking up the radio. What's up? Getting some weird resistance on the dynamic brakes. Probably nothing, but the gauge is twitching. I checked my own panel. Everything looked normal, but Jake had been doing this almost as long as me. If he said something felt wrong, it probably was. Keep an eye on it. We'll check at the next signal stop. The load today was mostly agrigen feed, 47 cars of the stuff, bound for processing plants across Kansas and Nebraska. Experimental formula, the manifest said. Some kind of enhanced livestock supplement designed to boost weight gain in cattle. The cars were sealed tight, company logos plastered across the sides in that aggressive green agrigen used for everything. I'd hauled it before, paid better than grain, and the company was always punctual with their schedules. Dad used to say you could tell everything about a person by how they treated railroad men. The farmers out here, they'd wave when you passed, bring you coffee if you were stopped at a crossing. The corporate folks, they just wanted their shipment on time and didn't give a damn if you pissed in a bottle to make their deadlines. My phone buzzed. Text from Clara, the nurse who checked on Dad 3 times a week. He's doing fine today. Says his chest feels better. Still needs to take the evening meds. I typed back, be there by 7. Tell him to wait for me. 17 miles to McPherson. Hour and a half on the rails, another 20 minutes in the truck. I'd make it. Always did. The landscape out here doesn't change much. Wheat fields stretching to the horizon, punctuated by grain silos and the occasional farmhouse. This time of year, late August, everything was golden and ready for harvest. The sun hung low, turning the whole prairie into something that looked almost beautiful if you squinted. My ex-wife used to hate it, called it monotonous, said watching wheat grow was like watching paint dry, except the paint was on a canvas the size of 3 counties. She wasn't wrong, but she didn't understand what I understood. The plains had rules. They were predictable. You knew what you were getting. The same fields, the same signals, the same maintenance stops. There was comfort in that, even if it looked boring to outsiders. Grant. Jake's voice again, tighter this time. Yeah, that brake thing is getting worse, and I'm smelling something. Chemical. Like, I don't know, ammonia mixed with burnt plastic? I frowned. You open a window? Already did. It's not helping. And the temperature gauge is climbing on the 2nd unit. Nothing critical yet, but... Alright, I'm cutting speed. Let me check the rear cameras. I pulled up the feed from the cameras mounted along the train. Everything looked normal until I got to car 43. There was steam, or smoke, hard to tell, venting from somewhere underneath. Not heavy, but definitely visible. Shit, I muttered. What VE you got? Jake asked. Possible brake fire on one of the agrigen cars. 43, maybe 44. I'm bringing us down to 20. Copy. You want to stop? I should have said yes right then, but we were still 14 miles from McPherson, and the nearest siding was 9 miles back. Stopping on the main line meant blocking traffic for hours, and dispatch hated that. Besides, brake fires happened. Usually they burned themselves out if you slowed down enough to let things cool. "Not yet," I said. "Keep monitoring. If it gets worse, we'll pull over at the next signal." Dad always said the hardest part of this job wasn't the machines. It was the decisions. Every day you made 100 small calls. Speed up, slow down, stop, keep going. Most of the time you got it right, but the times you got it wrong, they stuck with you. The smell hit my cab 3 minutes later. Jake was right. Ammonia and burnt plastic with something else underneath. Something organic and wrong, like meat left out in the sun. I opened my window and the prairie air rushed in, but it didn't help. The smell was coming from the train itself. "Jake, I'm stopping," I said. "Something's wrong with that feed car." Thank Christ. I was about to call it myself. I radioed dispatch. A bored voice answered. Randy, probably, the afternoon shift supervisor who treated every call like a personal inconvenience. "This is BNSF 5347. Engineer Whitaker. I've got a potential fire in car 43. Requesting emergency stop at mile marker 187. Copy, 5347. Is the fire confirmed? Heavy smoke, chemical smell, rising temperature. I'm treating it as confirmed." Pause. "That's an Agrigen car, right? Hold on." I didn't wait. The brakes hissed as I started the emergency shutdown sequence. The whole train shuddered, 112 cars groaning against their couplings as momentum fought inertia. Through the rear camera, I could see the smoke getting thicker, darker. "Grant." Jake's voice was different now, scared. "You seeing this?" I switched cameras. The smoke wasn't smoke anymore. It was steam, billowing out in thick gray clouds, and something was leaking from the bottom of car 43, pooling on the ballast between the rails. Dark liquid, spreading fast. "Yeah, I'm seeing it." "What the hell is that?" "I don't know." The train finally stopped. Emergency protocol said to stay in the cab until dispatch cleared us, but I could see that leak spreading, and every instinct I had said we needed to get clear. The smell was worse now, overpowering, making my eyes water. "Jake, get out of your unit and walk forward to me. Do it now." "What about?" "Now." I grabbed the radio. "Dispatch, we have a major chemical leak from Agrigen car 43. I need hazmat out here and I need them now." Randy's voice came back, and this time he sounded less bored. "Copy. What's the nature of the—" The explosion cut him off. Not big, more like a champagne cork popping, but loud enough to make me jump. Through the camera, I saw the side panel of car 43 buckle outward, and that dark liquid started spraying onto the wheat field beside the tracks. 40 feet away, the wheat started dying, just browning and collapsing like someone had dumped gasoline on it. But it was spreading, fast. My phone buzzed again. "Clara, your dad's asking when you'll be here. Should I tell him you're running late?" I stared at the text, then at the spreading death in the wheat field, then at Jake climbing down from his engine with his hand over his mouth. "Tell him I'll be there when I can," I typed back. The prairie wind shifted, blowing that chemical smell straight into my face. Somewhere in the distance, a farmer's irrigation pump kicked on, the same one I'd heard complaining on the radio earlier. The wheat field rippled like an ocean, golden and perfect and completely unaware of what was coming. I climbed down from the cab, and that's when I saw it. The liquid wasn't just killing the wheat, it was changing it. The stalks weren't brown, they were black, twisted, growing in directions that didn't make sense. And they were still moving. "Jesus Christ," Jake whispered beside me. The radio in my hand squawked. 5347. Dispatch. Agrigen is saying that cargo is classified. Do not approach the leak. Emergency response is en route. I looked at the field. The black was spreading faster now, jumping from stalk to stalk like it was alive. How long? I asked. 20 minutes. The wind shifted again, blowing toward McPherson. Toward Dad.
Schuld veveram.
That's what the protocol said. Evacuate to a safe distance and wait for professionals. But I couldn't stop staring at that black rot spreading through the wheat. Couldn't shake the feeling that 20 minutes was going to be too long. Jake was on his phone trying to get signal. Nothing. Can you believe that? Middle of goddamn nowhere, and there's a farm about half a mile north. I interrupted. The Crenshaw place. They'll have a landline. Dispatch said to stay put. Dispatch doesn't understand what they're looking at. I pointed at the wheat field. The black infection had spread maybe 50 yards already, and it was accelerating. Where the stalks touched each other, the rot jumped instantly, like it was transmitted through contact. That's not just a chemical spill. That's something biological. How do you know? Because chemicals don't learn. Jake stared at me. Learn? I gestured at the advancing line of corruption. Watch it. It's not spreading evenly anymore. It's finding the densest parts of the field first, following the irrigation lines. That's not diffusion, that's behavior. That's insane. Yeah. I grabbed my emergency kit from the cab, water, first aid, flares. You coming? He hesitated, then nodded. Crenshaw's place. Half a mile. We jogged along the access road paralleling the tracks, keeping the wind at our backs. The smell followed us anyway, that ammonia plastic rot smell that made my throat burn. Behind us, I could hear the train's emergency systems hissing and clicking, trying to contain a leak they weren't designed for. The Crenshaw farmhouse sat surrounded by wheat on 3 sides, with a gravel drive leading out to County Road 340. I'd met Tom Crenshaw a few times over the years, solid guy, 4th-generation farmer, always had a thermos of coffee when you stopped by. His son Danny ran the operations now, after Tom's heart attack last spring. Danny's truck was in the drive, along with 2 others I didn't recognize. I pounded on the door. Danny answered, wiping grease off his hands. Mid-30s, sunburned face, wearing a Kansas State cap. Grant, the hell are you doing here? Got an emergency. Need to use your phone. Cell towers are down. Been down since. He stopped, sniffing the air. What's that smell? That's the emergency. Where's your landline? He led us inside. The kitchen smelled like coffee and fried chicken. Tom Crenshaw sat at the table, oxygen tank beside him, looking 20 years older than the last time I'd seen him. 2 other farmers were there too, Ron Dietrich from the spread east of here, and somebody I didn't recognize, younger guy with the Nebraska plates on his truck. Grant, Tom wheezed. Your old man doing better? Yeah, Listen, Tom, I need your phone. We've got a chemical spill from the train. Bad one. The young farmer stood up fast. How bad? Bad enough that you all need to get out of here. Now. Danny shook his head. We just got the irrigation systems reset. Can't leave in the middle of. Danny. I pointed out the kitchen window toward the rail line. The black corruption was visible now even from here, a spreading stain across the golden wheat. See that? It's moving toward you, and when it gets to your field, it's going to keep going. Ron Dietrich squinted. That's not possible. Chemicals don't spread like. It's not chemical, or it's not just chemical. I don't know what the hell it is, but I need to call this in before it reaches McPherson. Tom started to say something, then began coughing, deep, wet coughs that shook his whole body. When he pulled his hand away from his mouth, there was blood on his palm. Dad, Danny moved toward him. I'm fine, more coughing. Then he pointed past us out the window. "What the hell is that?" We turned. Something was moving through the wheat field between the house and the train tracks. Not wind, this was deliberate, purposeful. The stalks bent and swayed, creating a path that cut straight toward us. "Nobody touch those plants," I said. "Jake, help me seal the doors." "Are you serious right now?" "Yes." The young farmer, I later learned his name was Marcus, worked a spread near Concordia, grabbed his keys. "Screw this. I'm out." "Marcus, wait." Danny started, but Marcus was already running for his truck. He made it maybe 10 yards before he stopped. Just froze, staring at his wheat field. The northern section, closest to the train tracks, was already turning. Not dying, transforming. The stalks grew taller, thicker, twisting together into shapes that hurt to look at. And they were moving, rippling in patterns that had nothing to do with wind. Marcus backed up slowly. "That's not... wheat doesn't." "Get inside," I said. "Everyone, now." We dragged Tom back into the house. Danny slammed the door and I grabbed the landline, dialing 911. The line was busy. "Shit." I tried again. "Still busy." "Try the county emergency line," Tom gasped between coughs. He rattled off a number. That one rang. A woman answered, sounding harassed. "Cloud County Emergency Management. This is Grant Whitaker, BNSF engineer. I've got a biological contamination event at mile marker 187, spreading rapidly through agricultural fields. We need immediate hazmat and evacuation protocols." "Sir, we're already aware of the situation. Multiple reports from..." She stopped. "Did you say mile marker 187? "Yes. That's 20 miles from the initial incident site. The containment zone is only supposed to extend 15 miles. My stomach dropped. Initial incident? How many spills are there? 3 confirmed, all from Agrigen freight cars. The company is sending their response team, but they're saying it'll be 4 hours before. 4 hours. I looked out the window at the advancing corruption. We don't have 4 hours. That thing is spreading at maybe 50 yards every 10 minutes. By my math, it'll hit McPherson in 90 minutes. Sir, the company assured us the contamination is contained to. The company is wrong. I'm watching it spread right now. You need to evacuate McPherson. You need to evacuate everyone within 50 miles of the rail line. I don't have authority to. Then find someone who does. I slammed the phone down. Danny was at the window, watching his wheat field die and transform. My whole crop, 30 years of my family working this land, and it's just... Forget the crop, Ron Dietrich said. He was holding a shotgun now. I hadn't seen him grab it. We need to leave. All of us. Can't, Marcus said flatly. He was still staring out the window, his face pale. Look at the road. The gravel drive leading to County Road 340 cut through wheat fields on both sides. The corruption had reached the eastern field now, spreading faster than before. As we watched, the twisted stalks began growing across the road itself, meeting in the middle, forming a barrier of black, wrong vegetation. There's still the western access road, Danny said. The one that connects to Highway 81. That's 3 miles through the fields, his father wheezed. In the truck, exposed. And that stuff is getting faster. He was right. The corruption was accelerating, learning, adapting. What had taken 10 minutes to spread 50 yards was now spreading 100 yards in the same time. Jake grabbed my arm. Your dad. He's in McPherson. Yeah. Then we need to move. Now, before this thing cuts off all the routes. In what? Marcus's truck is on the wrong side of that barrier, and the access road might already be compromised. The train, Tom said suddenly. We all looked at him. He pointed with a shaking hand toward the rail line. Your engines are upwind of the leak. If you can get them uncoupled from the freight cars. I shook my head. That's insane. We'd have to cross that field to reach them. You got a better idea? I didn't. The phone rang. Danny grabbed it. Yeah? What? Jesus. Okay. He hung up, his face ashen. That was my cousin in McPherson. The hospital's getting people with respiratory issues. Dozens of them. All complaining about the same thing. Burning in their lungs, coughing blood. Tom coughed again, harder this time. His oxygen tank hissed. How long's he been coughing like that? I asked Danny. Started about 20 minutes ago, right after you got here. Right after the spill. The timing clicked in my head. The wind direction, the airborne spread, the respiratory symptoms. This wasn't just contact transmission. It was going through the air. We need masks, I said. Anything. Bandanas, wet towels, I don't care. Medicine cabinet, Tom gasped. Upstairs. Dust masks from the last harvest. Marcus ran for the stairs. The phone rang again. Danny answered, listened, then hung up without saying anything. Who was that? Ron asked. State police. They're setting up roadblocks on all highways within 30 miles. Nobody in or out. They're sealing us in? Jake's voice cracked. They can't. They already did. Through the window, I watched the corruption reach the Crenshaw farmhouse's wheat field. The stalks began their transformation, browning, blackening, twisting into those impossible shapes. And beneath it all, something was moving through the field toward us. Not wind, not animals. Something else. Marcus came back with a handful of paper masks. This is all there was. I took one, knowing it wouldn't be enough. The masks were designed for dust, not whatever this was. But it was better than nothing. My phone buzzed, service was back, intermittently. A text from Clara. Hospital calling him in. They need his old immunity records. Something about an outbreak. What's happening out there? I stared at the text. Immunity records. Outbreak protocols. They were already preparing for the worst. I typed back, tell him I'm coming. Tell him to stay inside no matter what. The corruption reached the house's foundation. Through the floorboards, I could hear something scratching. The scratching got louder. Tom's coughing turned into choking gasps, his oxygen tank hissing uselessly. Danny held his father steady while Ron kept the shotgun trained on the door, though what good buckshot would do against mutated wheat I couldn't imagine. Basement, Danny said. We got a storm shelter down there. Concrete walls, separate ventilation. That won't stop airborne contamination, Jake said. You got a better idea? We didn't. The five of us, me, Jake, Danny, Ron, and Marcus, half-carried Tom down the narrow stairs into a cement-walled room that smelled like mildew and old potatoes. Danny pulled the steel door shut and spun the lock. The scratching continued overhead, muffled now but persistent. My phone buzzed again. I had 2 bars of signal somehow. The text was from an unknown number. This is Dr. Talia Dale, CDC Field Response. Are you the BNSF engineer who called emergency services? I typed back, yes. Situation deteriorating. Multiple locations contaminated. Need immediate assistance. Her response came fast. We're aware. AgriGen has been running experimental prion trials in livestock feed. The derailment compromised containment. Current spread exceeds all models. Where are you located? Crenshaw Farm, half-mile north of mile marker 187. That's inside the hot zone. Prion transmission is both airborne and contact. Symptoms include respiratory distress, hemorrhaging, aggressive behavior. Do not attempt to leave the area. Response team is establishing fire breaks. I read the text 3 times. Fire breaks, I said out loud. What? Danny looked up from his father, who was breathing in shallow, wet gasps. They're going to burn the fields. All of them. Ron lowered his shotgun. They can't. This is our land. Generations of... They're containing a pandemic, I interrupted. They don't care about property rights. Marcus was at the small basement window, looking out at ground level. The wheat's at the house. I can see it through the foundation vents. It's growing inside the crawl space. How's the ventilation system work down here? I asked Danny. Air intake on the east side, exhaust on the west. Filters are basic, designed for tornado debris, not whatever this is. Shut them both down. Seal every vent you can reach. We'll suffocate. We'll suffocate slower than we'll get infected. Danny hesitated, then started closing vents. Ron helped him, stuffing rags into the gaps. Jake was trying his cell, calling his wife in Wichita, his voice tight with barely controlled panic as he left a voicemail telling her he loved her. My phone buzzed. Clara, they're evacuating the whole hospital. Your dad's refusing to leave without you. Grant, what the hell is happening? Called her. She answered on the first ring. Clara, listen to me carefully. Dad needs to go with the evacuation. This isn't negotiable. He says he's not leaving until you get there. Wait, what's that sound? Background noise on her end. Sirens, shouting, something that might have been gunfire. Clara, there's people outside the hospital. They're acting strange. Some of them are covered in... The call cut off. I tried calling back, straight to voicemail. Grant. Jake's voice pulled me back. He was looking at his phone, his face gray. There's news. Multiple counties under quarantine. Kansas National Guard mobilizing. And look at this. He showed me his screen. A local news site, live updates. Developing multi-county outbreak of unknown pathogen. CDC confirms 47 confirmed cases, 13 deaths. Symptoms include rapid respiratory failure and aggressive behavioral changes. Authorities implementing emergency protocols. Below that, breaking, federal government declares agricultural disaster zone. Controlled burns scheduled for containment. When? I asked. Jake scrolled. Doesn't say. But they're evacuating everything within the firebreak perimeter, and according to this map. He zoomed in. We're right on the edge. Inside or outside, hard to tell. Tom made a sound, half cough, half scream. When Danny pulled his hand away, it was covered in black fluid. Not blood, something thicker, darker. Dad! Danny's voice broke. Tom's eyes opened. They weren't eyes anymore. The whites had turned gray. The pupils dilated so wide there was barely any iris left. He looked at his son and smiled, and his teeth were stained the same black as the fluid. Danny, Tom whispered. Danny, I can see it now. I can see the pattern. It's beautiful, like fractals going forever. And if we just let it grow. Don't listen to him, I said. That's the infection talking. It's not infection. Tom's voice had changed. Still his, but with something underneath, something that harmonized wrong. It's evolution. The old wheat was inefficient. This is better, faster. We should help it spread. Ron raised his shotgun. Tom, you need to. Tom moved faster than a man with failing lungs should have been able to move. He lunged at Ron, hands outstretched, that black fluid dripping from his mouth. Ron fired, the blast deafening in the concrete room, and Tom went down. But he was still moving, still crawling, still smiling. Dad, no. Danny grabbed his father, trying to hold him back. Don't touch him, I pulled Danny away. Whatever that is, it's contagious. You touch him, you're infected. He's my father. He's not your father anymore. Tom lay on the concrete floor, twitching. The shotgun blast had taken him in the chest, but he wasn't bleeding normally. Just that black fluid, spreading across the floor in patterns that looked almost intentional. Where it touched the concrete, dark lines spread like roots or veins. Marcus backed away from the growing stain. It's in the shelter. Jesus Christ, it's in here with us. My phone buzzed. Dr. Dale, firebreak operations commencing in 45 minutes. If you're still in the contamination zone, move to the highest cleared ground you can find. Wear respiratory protection. The burn will be total. I showed the text to the others. 45 minutes, Jake said. To get where? Everything around us is wheat fields. The rail embankment, I said. The tracks run on elevated ballast, 6 feet above the field level. It's our best shot. That's half a mile through infected crops, Ron said, reloading his shotgun with shaking hands. And that thing, he gestured at Tom's still twitching body, moved fast. What if there's more of them? There are, Marcus said, looking at his phone. His face was bone white. Social media's full of videos. People in Salina, McPherson, even Hutchinson. They're calling them runners. They move fast, they're aggressive, and they're spreading it on purpose, like they want to infect others. Danny was crying, staring at his father. How do we know we're not already infected? We've been breathing the same air Symptoms appear within 20 minutes of exposure. I read from Dr. Dale's follow-up text. Respiratory distress, then hemorrhaging, then behavioral changes. We've been down here 15 minutes and none of us are coughing blood. Yet, Ron said. Yet, I agreed. Tom stopped moving. For a moment, I thought he was dead. Then his head turned toward us. Too far, joints bending in directions they shouldn't. And he spoke in that harmonized voice. The fire won't stop it. The prions survive heat. They're in the soil now, in the water, in the air. The burn will just spread the spores further. You can't contain evolution. Shut up, Danny sobbed. They know, Tom continued, that wrong smile spreading. Agrigen knows. They designed it to be persistent, to transform the agricultural base, to replace inefficient natural crops with something better. They just didn't expect the train to derail, didn't expect early release. But it's better this way, faster. The whole continent will be transformed in weeks, the world in months. That's insane, Jake said. That's agriculture. Tom's gray eyes found mine. You know, Grant, you've seen how corporations work. They don't make mistakes. They make investments. And this investment is going to change everything. Ron aimed his shotgun at Tom's head. I'm sorry, Danny. Danny nodded, not looking. The second blast echoed through the shelter. My phone, 30 minutes until burn initiation. Helicopters reporting multiple runner groups converging on populated areas. If you can reach the rail line, do it now. I looked at the sealed vents, at the black fluid spreading across the floor, at Marcus backing toward the stairs, at Ron with his smoking shotgun, at Danny crying over his father's finally still body, at Jake checking his phone one more time for messages from his wife. We run, I said. We run now, or we burn with the crops. Marcus was already at the stairs. The wheat outside is 8 feet tall and infected. We go out there, we won't make it 10 yards. You stay here, you definitely won't make it. Ron checked his shotgun shells. I got 6 rounds left. After that, we improvise. I took the stairs 2 at a time, the others behind me. In the kitchen, Tom's blood, real blood, not that black fluid, was still pooled where he'd been coughing. Through the windows, I could see the wheat field. It had transformed completely now. The stalks stood 12 feet tall, black and glistening, moving in coordinated waves despite no wind. And between them, shapes moved. Human-sized shapes, running with that same too-fast, joints-bending wrong movement Tom had shown. "There's at least 6 of them," Marcus whispered, "between here and the tracks." "7," I corrected, pointing. "And they're not random. They're patrolling, like they're guarding the field." Jake grabbed my shoulder. "Grant, this is suicide." "I know. Your dad is in McPherson, which means he's either already evacuated or—" I didn't finish, couldn't finish. Danny wiped his eyes. "My truck's still in the drive. If we can reach it." "The road's blocked," Ron reminded him. "Those things have been growing across it for 30 minutes. We'd have to cut through." "So we cut through." "With what?" "Your good intentions." Danny's face hardened. "With my father's chainsaw, and his weed sprayer full of gasoline, and every goddamn thing in this house that burns." Marcus stared at him. "You want to set your own fields on fire?" "They're doing it anyway," Danny said. "At least this way I get to choose." I checked my phone. 27 minutes until the controlled burn. Dr. Dale's updates showed the runner groups were spreading faster, and several had reached McPherson's outskirts. The last message made my stomach drop. "Hospital evacuation compromised. Multiple runners inside building. If your father is still there, I'm sorry." I put the phone away. Couldn't think about that now. Had to focus on what I could control. "Danny's right," I said. "We burn a path through the wheat, make a run for the trains. Ron, you take point with the shotgun. Danny, you handle the sprayer. Marcus, Jake, you're with me. We move fast. We don't stop for anything." "And if one of us gets infected?" Marcus asked quietly. Nobody answered. Danny was already moving, grabbing his father's chainsaw from the utility room, checking the fuel. Ron found 3 road flares in the emergency kit. I took one, handed the others to Jake and Marcus. Through the window, one of the runners stopped and turned toward the house. It stood perfectly still, head cocked at an angle that made my spine crawl. Then it opened its mouth and screamed. Not a human sound, but something that carried across the fields like a siren, rising and falling in a pattern that felt almost like language. The other runners answered. All 6 of them started running toward the house. "Move," I said. "Now." Danny kicked open the back door and we spilled into the hell his wheat field had become. The stalks towered 12 feet now, black and slick and moving with purpose. Ron fired the shotgun twice, both barrels into the nearest runner. It went down but didn't stop moving, just crawled faster, leaving a trail of that dark fluid. Danny pulled the chainsaw cord. The engine roared and he swung into the wheat. The stalks resisted. They were tougher than normal grain, almost fibrous, but the blade chewed through them. Behind him, I followed with the weed sprayer, dousing the cut wheat with gasoline. "Flare!" I shouted. Marcus tossed one. The gasoline caught instantly, flames spreading along the cut path in both directions. The wheat didn't just burn, it screamed, high-pitched, modulating tones that hurt my ears and made my teeth ache. Where the flames touched the stalks, they writhed and twisted away, but not fast enough. Jake grabbed my arm, pulling me forward through the smoke. "The runners are circling. They're trying to cut us off from the tracks." He was right. Through the burning wheat, I could see them. 7 figures moving too fast, coordinating their approach like a pack of wolves. Except wolves didn't move with joints that bent backward, didn't make those harmonizing sounds that might have been communication or might have been something worse. Ron fired again. The closest runner took the blast in the face and kept coming. Its features were gone, just black fluid and those gray eyes, and when it opened its mouth I could see the wheat growing inside its throat, rooted in its tongue and teeth. "They're not human anymore," Ron said, his voice flat. He ejected the spent shells with shaking hands. "Whatever this thing does, it replaces you. Completely." Danny cut deeper into the field, the chainsaw blade heating up, starting to smoke. The gasoline path behind us was a corridor of flame maybe 20 feet wide, but the wheat was already regrowing at the edges, black shoots pushing through the scorched earth impossibly fast. "It's adapting to the fire," Marcus shouted over the roar of flames and chainsaw. "It's learning. Just keep moving." I sprayed more gasoline, my arms burning from the weight of the tank. We'd covered maybe 100 yards. The rail embankment was still 300 yards ahead, visible through the smoke as a dark ridge against the burning field. And between us and safety, the runners had formed a line. They stood shoulder to shoulder, 7 of them, swaying in unison. Their mouths opened simultaneously, and that harmonizing scream came out again. Louder now, sustained, making the air vibrate. The wheat around them responded, stalks bending toward us like fingers reaching. Ron fired twice more. One runner went down. The others didn't even flinch. 6 shells left, Ron said. After that, we're fighting hand to hand with things that don't feel pain. Danny's chainsaw sputtered and died. He yanked the cord twice, nothing. Out of fuel. "Use mine," Jake said, tossing him the second wheat sprayer. "Just spray and run. I'll handle the flares." We changed formation, Jake up front with the remaining flares, Danny and I on the flanks with the sprayers, Ron and Marcus in the middle. The runners watched us approach, waiting. Their gray eyes tracked our movement with an intelligence that made my skin crawl. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't look, couldn't afford the distraction. 50 yards from the runner line, Jake threw both remaining flares at once. They hit the ground between us and the runners, and Danny and I doused the area with gasoline. The flames shot up 15 feet, a wall of fire that should have stopped anything living. The runners walked through it. They were burning, flesh blackening, clothes catching fire, but they kept coming. The wheat growing from their mouths and eyes, and open wounds hissed in the flames but didn't stop growing. One of them reached for Marcus, fingers extended, and Ron put a shell through its chest at point-blank range. It stumbled but didn't fall. "The head," I shouted. "You have to destroy the head." Ron fired again. This time the runner's skull exploded in a spray of black fluid and burning wheat. Finally dropped. 4 shells left, 5 runners standing. "We can't win this," Marcus said. He was backing toward the flames, eyes wild. "We can't." One of the runners lunged and grabbed him. Marcus screamed as those blackened fingers touched his skin. Where they made contact, dark veins immediately spread up his arm, racing toward his heart. Jake grabbed the empty gas can and swung it like a bat, catching the runner across the head. It released Marcus and turned on Jake instead. Danny sprayed it with gasoline, and I grabbed Jake's lighter from his pocket, flicked it, threw it. The runner became a pillar of fire, but even burning, it kept reaching for us. Marcus was on his knees, staring at his arm. The veins had reached his shoulder now, black lines spreading like cracks in porcelain. Oh God, I can feel it. It's in my head. It's..." His voice changed mid-sentence, picking up that harmonizing tone. "It's beautiful." "No," Danny said. "Marcus, fight it. You can." "There's nothing to fight." Marcus stood up, and his movements were already changing, joints loosening, body straightening in ways that looked wrong. "It's not hostile. It's offering. Partnership. Evolution. We've been farming the wrong crops for 10,000 years. This is what wheat was meant to become." Ron raised his shotgun. "Wait," Marcus said, but his voice was splitting now. His own voice and something else underneath, speaking in harmony. "You don't understand. The company knew. Agrigen designed this, not as a weapon, as an upgrade, to replace conventional agriculture with something better, faster, more efficient. The prion were supposed to transform crops, not people. But when humans get infected, we become part of the network. We can see the whole pattern, the entire biosphere reimagined. Ron, I said quietly, do it. I'm sorry, kid. The shotgun blast ended Marcus's explanation. His body fell into the burning wheat and the flames took him quickly. 3 shells, for runners still advancing through the fire. Run! I grabbed Danny and pulled him forward. We burst through the flame wall into the unburned wheat beyond. It was regular wheat here, golden, normal, swaying in the wind from the fire, for about 20 yards. Then we hit the infection line and it was black stalks again, taller than before, dense enough that we had to push through them single file. Jake led, using his body to force a path. Ron was right behind him, shotgun ready. Danny followed, and I brought up the rear, my weed sprayer nearly empty. Behind us, the runners crashed through the wheat. They were faster in the infected areas. The stalks bent aside to let them pass. The embankment, Jake shouted. I can see the tracks. 70 yards. 60. The runners were gaining. Ron turned and fired twice. 2 runners went down with headshots. 1 shell left. 2 runners still coming. 40 yards. 30. My lungs were burning from the smoke and the running and maybe something else, some airborne strain of whatever this was. I tried not to think about Tom's gray eyes and harmonizing voice. 20 yards. The infected wheat suddenly thinned out. We'd reached the cleared maintenance zone around the tracks. The embankment rose ahead of us, 6 feet of crushed rock and ballast. At the top, my 3 locomotives sat exactly where I'd left them, emergency lights still flashing. Jake scrambled up the embankment first, then reached back to help Danny. Ron covered them, his last shell chambered. I was 10 feet from the slope when something grabbed my ankle. A runner, one of the ones Ron had shot, crawling through the wheat with half its head gone but still functioning. Its grip was impossibly strong. I kicked at it with my free foot, connected with its face, but it didn't let go, just pulled harder, dragging me backward into the wheat. Grant! Jake started back down the slope. No, get to the engines. Ron fired his last shell into the runner's remaining eye. His grip loosened and I yanked free, stumbling up the embankment. My pants were torn where it had grabbed me, skin beneath scratched but not bleeding. Yet, we reached the top and ran along the tracks toward my lead locomotive. The whole train stretched behind us, 112 cars of freight, with car 43 in the middle still venting that dark steam. The spill had spread along the tracks now, the ballast contaminated, the rails themselves showing patches of black corruption. The engines are contaminated, Danny said, pointing. Look at the wheels. He was right. Where the train had stopped, some of that leaked fluid had splashed onto the locomotive trucks. Black growths were already forming on the metal. Doesn't matter, I said. We're not staying on the ground. I climbed the ladder to the lead unit's cab, the others right behind me. Inside, everything looked normal. The same controls I'd been using for 23 years, the same worn seat, the same coffee stain on the console from 2 weeks ago. The radio was still on, crackling with desperate transmissions. Multiple breaches in the McPherson quarantine line. Requesting immediate air support, we have runners in the... Confirmed civilian casualties in the hundreds, possibly. I switched off the radio and checked my phone. 5 missed calls from Clara. 3 texts from the unknown number, Dr. Dale, each one more urgent than the last. And 1 message from Dad's number, sent 7 minutes ago. I opened it with shaking hands. Son, they came for the hospital. The runners. I'm hiding in the supply closet on the 4th floor. They're in the hallways. I can hear them talking to each other in those voices. Whatever this is, it's smart. It's coordinating. The other patients, the ones who got infected, they're not confused or panicked. They're organized. They're recruiting. Grant, if you're still out there, don't come for me. This thing spreads too fast. I love you. I'm proud of what you became. You were always better at this life than I was. Take care of yourself. I stared at the text until the screen blurred. Grant. Jake's voice was gentle. We need to move. The burn starts in 12 minutes. I looked out the cab window. In every direction, wheat fields stretched to the horizon. Golden fields to the west and north, clean, uninfected. Black fields to the south and east, contaminated, spreading. And moving through those black fields, dozens of shapes now. The runners had multiplied. Or maybe they'd always been there, and we'd just reached the center of their territory. The trains won't move, Danny said. He was looking at the freight cars behind us. Not with that leak. The contaminations in the wheel bearings, probably the airlines too. You try to run these engines, you'll spread it along the entire rail line. So we uncouple, I said. Drop the freight cars. Take just the locomotives. 3 engines won't make it to the firebreak perimeter, Ron said. He'd found a Kansas road map in the cab, was studying it. The burn zone extends 40 miles in every direction from the spill sites. We're 22 miles from the nearest edge. These things have a range of maybe 60 miles on a full tank, and your fuel gauge is reading 3/4. I checked. He was right. So we don't drive out, Jake said. We wait for rescue. There is no rescue. I showed them the texts from Dr. Dale. The last one was timestamped 3 minutes ago. Firebreak operation commencing now. Multiple sites. Total burn coverage. Aircraft deployed. If you're still in the zone, find shelter and pray the flames pass around you. I'm sorry. Through the cab windows, I saw the first helicopter. Then another. Then 6 more, flying in formation from the north. They carried something beneath them, tanks, pressurized containers. Incendiary bombs, Ron said quietly. They're going to burn everything. The first helicopter released its payload 2 miles north of us. I watched the containers tumble down, hit the wheat fields, and explode in rolling waves of flame. The fire spread instantly. This wasn't normal combustion. This was engineered burning, designed to consume everything organic in its path. How long until the fire reaches us? Danny asked. I did the math. 8 minutes, maybe 10 if the wind shifts. Can we outrun it? On foot? No. In the engines, uncoupled from the freight. I looked at the control panel, calculating. Maybe, if we start moving now and don't stop for anything. Jake was at the rear cab window, looking back at the freight cars. What about the other Agrigen cars? If we leave them here and they rupture in the fire, the prion will spread in the smoke, I finished. Airborne transmission for hundreds of miles. So we can't leave them. And we can't take them. We all stood there, looking at each other, the weight of the choice settling over us like ash. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but it was Dad's number. Hello. The voice that answered wasn't Dad's. It harmonized, split into 2 tones speaking simultaneously. Grant Whitaker, your father wants you to know he's not in pain. The transformation is peaceful. He's part of the network now. He can see what we see, the beauty of it, the inevitability. Who is this? We are the next phase. You call us runners, but we're so much more. We're humanity version 2.0. Better lungs, enhanced neural pathways, perfect coordination. The prion don't destroy, they improve. Your father understands now. He wants you to understand. Let me talk to him. You are talking to him. He's here. We're all here. Individual consciousness preserved but networked. Imagine Wikipedia but with human minds. All knowledge, all experience instantly shared. Your father's lifetime of railroad expertise, his love for you, his regrets. All of it's part of us now, and we want to share it with you." I heard screaming in the background. The runner continued talking as if it didn't notice. "The fire won't stop us. It'll just scatter us further. The prions survive temperatures up to 900 degrees. They're in the soil now, the groundwater, the air. In 6 months, every agricultural region in North America will be transformed. In a year, the world. This isn't an outbreak. It's a corporate rollout. AgriGen invested $40 billion in this technology. Did you really think they'd let it fail? You're insane. We're efficient. There's a difference. Come to the hospital, Grant. Let us show you. Your father misses you. He wants to share what he's learned." I hung up. The helicopters were making another pass, closer this time. 2 miles away, another wave of fire bloomed. The heat was already noticeable, the air shimmering. "We have to decide," Ron said. "Now." I looked at the control panel, at the freight cars behind us, at the approaching flames, at my 3 companions who'd trusted me to get them out of this. Danny, who'd lost his father and his farm in the same hour. Ron, who'd used his last shells saving us. Jake, who'd left messages for his wife knowing he might never see her again. For lives, against maybe stopping this thing from spreading further. Not really a choice at all. "We're not running," I said. "Grant," Jake started. "We're going back to car 43. We're going to rupture every single AgriGen car while the fire's coming. Burn it all at once, hot enough to maybe sterilize the prion before they can spread." "That's suicide," Danny said. "Yeah. Your dad is already gone." My voice cracked. "But maybe we can stop this from reaching everyone else's fathers." Ron checked his shotgun, then remembered it was empty. He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Hell of a way to go out." "You don't have to come," I said. "Any of you. This is my train, my responsibility." Jake grabbed the control panel. "How do we do it?" I pulled up the train manifest on the computer, scanning for every AgriGen car. 14 of them scattered through the consist. We released the brakes on the freight cars, let them roll backward, build up speed, then couple the locomotives back on hard. The collision should rupture the sealed cars. Then we run the engines forward at full throttle, dragging the leaking cars into the fire. "And we jump before impact?" Danny asked. "No, we stay with it. Make sure every car burns. If even one survives intact and gets scattered by the explosions." "The prions spread anyway," Ron finished. "Okay, I'm in. But we do it fast. That fire's moving at maybe 30 miles an hour and it's not slowing down." Through the cab window, I could see the runners. They'd figured out what we were doing. Dozens of them were climbing the embankment now, moving toward the train with that unnatural coordination. They knew we were the last people who might stop this. They couldn't let us succeed. I released the brakes on all 112 freight cars and watched them start rolling backward down the slight grade, away from our locomotives. The whole train picked up speed slowly, agonizingly, thousands of tons of steel and cargo gaining momentum inch by inch. The runners reached the train. I saw them climbing onto the freight cars, trying to stop the momentum by jamming themselves between the wheels and rails. Several were crushed instantly. The others kept coming. "They're slowing us down," Jake said, watching through the rear camera. "Not enough." I checked the speed. The freight cars were doing 20 miles per hour now, rolling backward across the infected section of track. 30 seconds and we couple back on. Danny was at the side window watching the fire. It was close enough now that I could see individual stalks of wheat igniting, the flames jumping from plant to plant like a living thing. The heat was intense even through the closed cab windows. 20 seconds, I said. Ron had found a toolbox in the cab and was jury-rigging something, the emergency brake handle, wrapped with electrical tape and wedged against the throttle control. When we couple back on and hit the freight cars, the impact's going to throw us forward. This'll keep the engines at full throttle even if we can't reach the controls. Good thinking. 10 seconds. The runners were on the locomotives now. I could hear them on the roof trying to break through. One of them appeared at the side window, its gray eyes meeting mine. It smiled with a mouth full of black wheat and mouthed words I was glad I couldn't hear. 5 seconds. Everyone hold on to something. We hit the freight cars at 40 miles per hour. The impact threw me against the control panel hard enough to crack ribs. Jake went through the side window, just his arm, thankfully, which he pulled back covered in blood and glass. Danny and Ron slammed into each other and went down in a tangle of limbs. But the freight cars ruptured. Through the rear camera, I watched car 43 split open like a piñata, spewing that dark liquid across the tracks and the neighboring cars. The contamination spread instantly, and where it touched the other Agrigen cars, their seals failed too. 14 cars worth of experimental prion-infected livestock feed poured onto the rails, mixing together, creating a soup of agricultural nightmare. The engine's wheels spun, found traction, and started dragging the leaking freight cars forward, straight toward the approaching fire. The runners understood what we'd done. They abandoned the train and ran, not away, but toward McPherson, trying to spread the infection before the fire could stop it. I watched them disappear into the wheat, moving impossibly fast, and knew we'd only slowed this thing down, not stopped it. But slowing down was better than nothing. Grant. Jake's voice was tight with pain. My arm. I think something from the freight cars splashed on me. I looked. His arm was covered in blood from the window glass, but underneath, I could see dark veins spreading from a patch of skin that looked burned. How long? He asked. I checked my phone's timer. The collision had been 40 seconds ago. You've got maybe 90 seconds before you start changing. I'm sorry. Don't be. He smiled, and it was genuine. Hell of a last ride. You tell my wife I went out doing something that mattered. You're going to tell her yourself. The fire's 30 seconds out. We jump now, we might. No. He grabbed the throttle with his good hand, holding it at full. You jump. All of you. I'll make sure these engines stay coupled to the freight cars until we're in the center of the burn. Can't risk them getting separated. Jake. I'm dead already. Let me make it count. Danny and Ron were already at the rear door, preparing to jump. The fire was 20 seconds away now, a wall of flame 50 feet high. The heat was unbearable. 10 seconds, Ron shouted. Grant, we're going. I looked at Jake. His arm was fully black now, the veins reaching his shoulder. He was still smiling. Go on, he said. And Grant, don't blame yourself for any of this. You did good. I jumped. Hit the ballast hard, rolled, came up running. Behind me, Danny and Ron were sprinting parallel to the tracks. The freight train was still moving forward, engine screaming, dragging all that contaminated cargo straight into the fire. Jake was visible through the cab window for one more second. Then the flames took everything. The explosion was immediate and total. 14 cars worth of prion-contaminated feed burning at once. The heat so intense it turned the rails white-hot. Secondary explosions followed as other cars ruptured from the temperature. The whole train became a fireball that climbed hundreds of feet into the air. We ran until we couldn't run anymore, then collapsed on clean ground half a mile from the burn. Behind us, the fire consumed everything. The wheat fields, the contaminated crops, the train, Jake's body, all of it turned to ash and smoke. I checked my phone one last time. 3 text messages from Dr. Dale, sent during our final run. Firebreak successful. contamination contained to 47 square mile zone. However, runners reached 4 population centers before perimeter established. Secondary quarantines in effect. Your actions at mile marker 187 prevented contamination of primary water table. Estimate you saved 200,000 lives. Thank you. I didn't feel thankful. I felt empty. Danny was crying quietly beside me, staring at the smoke rising from where his farm used to be. Ron sat with his head in his hands. Around us, the uninfected wheat swayed in the wind, golden and perfect and completely unaware that in 48 hours, government crews would burn it all anyway, just to be sure. My phone rang. Clara's number. Grant. Her voice was shaking. Your father. They found him in the hospital. He's infected, but he's contained. Restrained. They're saying there might be a treatment, something experimental. Do you want me to? No, I said. Let him go. But he's not my father anymore. He told me so himself. I hung up and watched the smoke rise into that flat Kansas sky. The same sky I'd looked at every day for 23 years. It looked different now, smaller, like the planes themselves had shrunk, and the rules I'd relied on, the predictability, the routine, the comfort of knowing what came next, had burned away with everything else. 3 days later, the CDC declared the outbreak contained. 47 square miles burned to bedrock, 8,000 people evacuated, 342 confirmed infected. The news called it an agricultural disaster. Agrigen stock dropped 40% before the government bailed them out. Something about critical food infrastructure and too big to fail. I never went back to the railroad. Couldn't. Every time I saw tracks, I thought about Jake staying behind, about Dad's harmonizing voice on the phone, about Tom Crenshaw smiling with a mouth full of black wheat. Danny sold what was left of his farm to a corporate buyer. Ron moved to Wyoming, someplace without wheat fields. I drove up to a small town in Nebraska, far from the rails, and took a job fixing farm equipment. Simple work, honest work, the kind where the only thing that grows is what you plant yourself. But sometimes late at night I checked the news, looking for reports of mysterious crop failures, of people acting strange, of companies testing new agricultural methods. The CDC says they destroyed all the Agrigen samples. Says the prion can't survive in untreated soil for more than 6 months. I don't believe them, because I remember what Tom said, right before Ron put him down, about Agrigen not making mistakes, about investments, about the whole continent being transformed within weeks. And I remember watching those runners fleeing toward McPherson, carrying the infection in their blood and their breath and their impossible biology. The CDC says they got all of them. But the plains have a lot of space to hide things. A lot of wheat fields where something could grow, quietly, waiting for the right conditions to spread again. I check the news. And I wait. And sometimes, when the wind blows from the south, I swear I can smell it. That ammonia plastic rot smell, faint but unmistakable. And I wonder if that's just my imagination, or if it's a warning. Either way, I'm not going back to Kansas.